Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Outhouse, and thanks for joining us here at our latest Right Recruiter webinar. It's a growing number in our series now where we're bringing some of the really just top conservative talent from across the country together to invest in sharing their experiences and their knowledge with the hope of building up our conservative movement across Canada. We want to train up and build sort of a generation of campaigners that can win elections, and then we want to train conservative political staffers so that our governments are good enough to get reelected and continue keeping Canada and our provincial governments and hopefully also our municipal governments moving in the right direction. So thanks for being here. Thanks for spending some time with us, whether you're watching us live here tonight on Tuesday, October the 3rd, or if you're watching this in the email that we send out afterwards where you're just watching it on demand. So we really appreciate you taking this time to invest in kind of your own professional development as someone in the conservative movement. Topic that we're going to get into tonight, and I want to dive in fairly quickly, is one that we could really, there could be a week-long conference on this. We're talking about the digital space and how to get involved there. And I was excited to see the big list of registrants that we had. And I know some of your backgrounds. You have a lot of experience, and you're here tonight because our guest is worth the time and worth having a listen to what he has to say. And that, of course, is Jeff Ballingall, the founder of Mobilize Media. I've only really gotten to know Jeff just this past year, actually, and it's been really great to get to know him and just hear the ideas that he has and just the passion he has for the conservative movement. And I just want to start, obviously, like we do with every guest, just giving the official bio before we dive into the discussion, as I said, Jeff is the founder of Mobilize Media, which has been instrumental in shaping the digital landscape. Since its inception in 2017, Mobilize Media has been dedicated to crafting impactful social media content, influencing public opinion, and driving change. In addition to his work at Mobilize Media, Jeff is the founder of Canada Proud and Ontario Proud, and these are organizations that have undeniably made substantial contributions to the Canadian political scene. He's known for his pivotal role as a digital lead for the Erin O'Toole leadership campaign, and as someone who was managing one of the other leadership campaigns in that 2020 leadership, I know that we would watch the work coming out of there and had much respect for it on the digital side. So with a growing team, Mobilize Media Group is making waves not only in political circles, but also within leading government and PR firms. And Jeff's expertise extend to his current work with prominent politicians from across Canada, where he continues to make a significant impact in the realm of digital public affairs. So with that, I want to welcome to the stage, Jeff. Congratulations, Jeff. You get to talk to me. Wow, what a winner. Hey, thanks for being here with us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Jeff, when I started in politics, I remember us having a discussion as to whether or not my first boss should have a Facebook page. It was like literally at that point, Twitter wasn't even thought of at that point in time. Clearly, we've come a long way, since then, and I can't wait to have you sort of unpack that for us. But maybe you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and Mobilize Media and what you do in practical terms, like in concrete terms. What do you offer to different clients that you work with?
Sure. So yeah, you did a great introduction of me and my team. So basically, yeah, we create social media content where we're really focused on doing rapid reaction things, but we also do long-term planning and long-term, longer form content. But basically, you hire us when you need to get your message out, whether that's through your own voice, through your own platform, or you're looking to work with social media influencers or finding surrogate voices to create that content, to change conversations, to get people thinking a bit differently, to muddy the waters in certain cases, to get people to vote, to get people to contact a member of parliament, or motivate them to talk to a city councillor. That's where we come in, and so we use many different mediums and tones and types of content, and we're always changing with the rapidly evolving social media landscape. And yeah, we've got a team of with freelancers and everyone we work with. It's about a team of just under 10 now.
Wow.
And we're a lot of great things are on the go.
That's excellent. So we're going to be unpacking a lot of that. We were talking about campaignings and moving people from just sort of being a like on your Facebook page to action and so on. And tonight, really, this is the type of topic where you can go from very specific and technical to big picture, thinking, so on. So I want to remind folks who are watching live, if you have questions and you want to throw them in the chat, please feel free, and we'll be grabbing some of those as we go. But as I like to start with everyone, Jeff, can you tell us, how did you get into politics? How did you become a staffer? What was sort of your story, and what was your first staffer role?
Sure. So unfortunately, I've been a political nerd since I was about 13. But if we're going to talk staffing, I was proudly accepted into the 2007 conservative internship program in Ottawa, which seems like yesterday, but it was apparently 16 years ago. So I feel old. Made some of my best friends there, worked, and I interned directly for the Minister of National Defense in his office. So that was really neat. Got to work for a lot of people that ended up being lifelong colleagues and friends. And it was very transformational experience for me, and I got my start there, and then I worked for what is now back to being called Conservative Caucus Services, and then from there I worked for the Minister of Western Economic Diversification. So that was my little tour of Parliament. I did that for about 3 years, and then I headed to Asia to travel overseas for a bit. But yeah, that was my first foray professionally.
So when you got into the internship program, and let's just give a great plug for that program, and Allison Haley, I know, is one of the main folks running that this year. If anyone's watching that, like, this is something, so you just proactively decided to apply for that, or did someone encourage you to be a part of it?
So I was involved. I went to Western. I was involved with the Western Tories. Prior to that, I was involved in, sporadically youth politics. I'd go to the odd convention and meet people who I know still to this day, like Stephen Lecce, and I've known since we were 14. He's now the Minister of Ontario's Minister of Education. So it's a small world, and I came up that way, and I've just been very addicted to politics since a very young age.
Yeah, it's true. These programs, kind of these young, or the youth programs, really do seem to kind of forge these bonds that last a lifetime. So, and it is interesting once we see our own friends getting elected to office, for sure.
Very strange. Yeah.
You're like, yes, Minister.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did you decide you wanted to jump though into kind of more the online work? And I in the intro, I used the term digital public affairs. Is that the correct way to kind of refer to what you do?
I think so, yeah, because it's more than just digital politics. We don't just work with politicians. You see this in the, whether it's Uber trying to influence, the city of New York to make a decision about how Uber was regulated when it first entered that city, or, you're trying to get a pipeline built across, northern British Columbia, or you're trying to get a nursing home built in Waterloo. Right? These are all politics. They all affect politicians and the public, and that interface is fascinating to me. And technology, evolves and changes. How people are influenced, whether as I said, like on a nursing home project or a pipeline, it's increasingly changing, and it's a lot of fun, and it's fun to be part of that, to create that content, to enter those conversations, to find the new ways to reach and mobilize people.
And how did you find out that this was an area you wanted to be involved in? Because this is something that, as you said, is constantly evolving. And when you started, in the internship 16 years ago, social media still would have been, not too far along.
We were banned from Facebook as an intern.
Yes, we were, and as staffers, we were also told not to do it for at least a year, I remember. So how did you decide that that's where you wanted to go?
I kind of just really fell into it. I don't really think of my professional decisions. They kind of just happen. I try to do what I feel is right, is in my gut, and I think I have good habits. And I've kind of fallen into it. I was at Toronto City Hall, and then I did some volunteering to do some social media and different campaigns. And then I was plucked from Corey Tenike, who many will know, and he hired me to work at Sun News. And I worked with the great Dennis Matthews and Matt Wolf and lots of other good friends of mine. And, I ran the website there and their social media. And that's where I realized I had a talent to, work with the team. It was my first time leading a team. So I had a staff of 3 or 4 at the time. And then, to create memes and digital magic. And I realized I had a talent for it. And there's something about the, I like being able to measure things, and the fact that I can measure how politics is really frustrating, because you do work on something all day, and who knows, like, was that press really successful? Was that time and question period good? But, you can quantify social media, and that's what I found so alluring and addictive.
Wow, that's a great point. I don't want to skip over that one, because you're right about the measurability of things.
Yeah.
I remember as a staffer, different MPs coming to us and saying, if I get this project funded, I will be reelected, or if I don't get this certain thing funded, I will not be reelected. And then, of course, you hit a change election. It doesn't matter what you've got funded or what you haven't. But exactly your point. I'm like, how do I know that what we're doing is actually making a difference? And I think this is an interesting part of the field that you're in. Is like you get to look at numbers all the time and see what's happening.
I get to see how long someone watches a video for, and then wonder why they banned it at the minute 13 mark. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I love about this job, and my team. And what I like working with my team is trying to figure out where we draw our inspiration from. Whether it's a new TikToker doing a really cool way to market bathing suits and beach products, like that, where it's completely irrelevant to politics. But my team is obsessed with this one girl. She makes these really funny videos, and her company, like she's a young entrepreneur from Vancouver, and her company's going crazy. Her and her sisters, and she talks about her boyfriend. Anyways, it's great. We're really intrigued by that, or by a famous McDonald's campaign with myth versus fact. That one's always one of my favorites. Or we've been inspired by Wendy's ads. It's just really funny where you get your inspiration from.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm going to ask one more of the questions I had, and then I'm going to jump into the chat. And Josh, our producer behind the scenes there, we'll start with Melanie's, and then we'll go to Harneet. So when you started out in this, kind of the digital public affairs side of things, what sort of gaps did you see on the conservative side of the spectrum, or were we leading the pack? I don't know. Like, so what was your kind of honest assessment of where the conservative movement was in Canada online, and how would you say where are we now, I guess, from when you started to now?
Okay, so if you look back historically, politicians that master the mediums of the day win elections, right? Whether that's FDR and radio, whether that's Kennedy and TV, whether that's Reagan using direct mail really well, and using he was a Hollywood actor, so he understood the power of television. He had Roger Ailes, working with Nixon. Like, all these guys understood the mediums of the day, and social media is the medium of the day. And if you don't understand it, then you're not really trying. And you kind of have a duty to, if you're going to enter politics and you're going to want to try to win for the Conservatives, you have a damn duty, I think, to try to win and do your best. And you should put your ego aside and figure out the best ways to do it and with the best people. Because, frankly, don't get involved if you don't want to win, and actually beat the Liberals and make change for ourselves and improve the country. So, I think, I came in and the Conservatives were getting destroyed in provincial elections because we didn't have third parties, but the Liberals did, union front groups with working families. And so what happened was Kathleen Wynne was raising hydro. She was very unpopular, but she kept on winning elections. And she thankfully changed the third party rules to really limit the spending power of the unions. And that gave, new third parties a chance. And then you combine that with the power of social media. And, it was a very fortunate timing for me, because I got to make Ontario Proud into what it was for the election. And, we reached 100,000 fans without spending $1. There's all this fallacy that I got corporate money and then I built Ontario Proud. No, I got donor money after I built Ontario Proud. So that's, we're still there. I mean, there's so much opportunity for us to speak and reach Canadians directly. It's not like CTV is getting more popular tomorrow. It's not like, the Toronto Star is suddenly going to be in great fiscal shape next week. We need to be figuring out the new mediums and how to reach people where they are, and understand Canada's changing demographics, and then master all the new technologies as they come.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to get the questions here now from the chat. We're seeing a little bit of a who's who here from the digital world too. So Melanie Parody wants to start with the hard-hitting question about Jeff. Why are you so awesome? You can take as long as you'd like to respond to that. And then she asked, what new trends on social media are you tracking now that may not be on everyone else's radar?
Sure. So thank you, Mel. I don't know. Mel must want something from me. I think we were talking about a contract.
It's an interesting lobby, type of opportunity.
Yeah, so we were talking about. I was talking about hiring her for something, so she's probably has something to do with that. She's probably trying to back me up. No, thanks, Mel. The new trends, as I said, it's all about how we're going to see more and more micro influencers and influencers just creating content completely unrelated to their business line itself, but just to create an audience, right? It has nothing to do, like for instance, this girl that's selling bikinis. Her little videos have like 1 in 10 will maybe discuss her business. Everything else is just really funny snippets and skits with her sisters. So that's the sort of thing that's really interesting, is how do we, get into those conversations and develop those platforms and channels, and then insert our messaging into that, or creating themes around that. So that's what I'm seeing is really interesting. Also, WhatsApp is increasingly important. Trying to figure out how to get into those conversations. Doing more, I would love to be doing more there, in terms of group chats and non-English media. That's really fascinating. So those are the two big things that are really catching my radar right now. On my radar.
Very cool. Now I want to ask a follow-up that's going to tie into Dean Tester's question here. So we got Dean coming up, and he's saying, "Hey Jeff, always great to hear from you. My question: if you're a newer elected official and want to be the next Pierre Poilievre and build a massive digital following, what's your advice for getting started in 2023?" But I'd like to just, before you answer that one, kind of tie that into, you talked about this woman who's got the business out in Vancouver, and about how her clips, they're unique to her, and how much of that can you study, either what Pierre Poilievre has done or what a successful business owner has done, and say, oh, if I just do this, I can replicate that, versus how much is unique to the individual. So I just want to tie those two together.
Well, if you go through, and what sells is it's a cliche, but you have to be authentic, right? Authenticity matters, and that's what these clips is like. They really ooze. It's just like she's just being herself, and politicians that you feel like you connect with, that you feel like you understand what level they're on. That's what matters. And if you lose that, then you kind of lose the public. That people need to, they don't have to necessarily agree with you all the time or like everything you say, but they want to feel like they can understand you and understand where you're going. And I think conservatives really struggle with that fact that we need to build that trust, that people think we don't have a hidden agenda, or that we're not secretly creepy or weird. Like if you talk to any female that's my age, that's always like their beef, that non-conservative people. It's always that the conservatives are out of touch or they're old, and so we have to be sure that we're being authentic and normal and be confident. And if you do that, then you're just more likable. No one wants to be friends with someone that isn't confident and seems insincere.
Boy, I mean, that's such you have to face reality. Like, I mean, if you're looking, and I guess for all of us in politics, I mean, you look at the current government right now, they are not wanting to face reality. Like the things are not going well for them, but I'm sure there's people sitting there saying, yeah, we think we can get through it because of this, this, and this, and they can talk themselves into it. But again, I'm thinking in your world where you get to see the reactions or the lack thereof, or the thumbs up, the thumbs down, the angry faces, and how quickly people, like, there's no hiding it, is it? Like when you're looking at analytics like that as to what's working and what's connecting and what's not, like it must lay things out pretty stark for you.
Yeah, it does. And sometimes you'd be surprised. For instance, I've been frustrated for years because I didn't understand why Justin Trudeau wasn't more popular, but thankfully reality has caught up. There is such a thing as gravity. You can't be a horrible prime minister forever and get away with it. So
just 8 years. That's
fortunately it means my mortgage has doubled and groceries are ridiculous, and I weep for my country. But I think it ultimately, Trudeau is still an asset to them, right? I think as I said, you can be, you can't be completely have no charisma and think you can get by on social media. Like that doesn't work. You actually have to have a story to say. You have to know how to say it. You can't be, Mr. Burns and think that you're going to get elected of mayor of Springfield, right? Like he would not translate well on TikTok. So, so you have to have that. You have to have that self-awareness. And a lot of politicians, as we've worked with, are completely lunatics and narcissists and pieces of work. And you have to want to be a politician, for better or for worse. So, I'm teaching them how to be. Teaching them to be just, cut the bullshit and just be themselves and try to level with people is a really important skill, I think, for a politician to have.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for that. We're going to move to Harneet's question next. Harneet is a very capable, digital, runs a very good digital consulting company in its own right. So he says, thanks for hosting the chat with Jeff. He's awesome. And question for Jeff: how do you see AI and its role in the evolving political digital space in Canada?
Well, it's really freeing up my creatives and my digital strategists to pursue other things, and allows them to be so much more efficient. Like our work output has gone up maybe 3 times since we started using AI for a lot of our processes. Whether that's drafting the shell of a proposal, or organizing files, or writing a script, or doing some basic research. You can't trust AI completely yet, but with DALL-E 3 and a bunch of other tools, I think we're going to see some really, really cool things in the near future. But certainly right now, it's it's a massive asset to have ChatGPT, where you can just kind of, board, just get your thoughts out on paper, and it kind of will structure a proposal for you. So I know that's fun for me when I'm just trying to get my thoughts out on paper.
Yeah. Now, how much thought is this? I mean, in terms of what AI can do in the digital space. Like I was a part of I attended a webinar myself earlier in the week, and people were actually having a discussion of things that sort of blew my mind about whether or not politicians, like, it would be ethical to, use AI to create a photo of their politician shaking the hands of the type of voter that they're looking to connect with, and so on, or using fake, backdrops of it, like of people, in photos and so on. And of course, my initial, I initially recoil for that. And then of course, I mean, look, if we're honest, as political staffers, we're stacking people behind politicians as human backdrops, anyway. And like, so how much of that is different? So we're like, what sort of grappling is going on in the industry right now with sort of the ethics of that, and where, how far, like, it's one thing to sort of say, here, like, give me even an initial script that I'm going to look at, or whatever. Where do you draw lines?
So again, a lot of this harkens back to the notion that politics really is show business for ugly people. And there is that bit of movie magic that we kind of inject in politics, whether that's in an ad or whether it's in an event, or a speech or whatever, right? There is presentation, and there is that show business aspect to it. So I think, but ultimately it has to seem real. And if you're not connecting with someone, and people aren't stupid. If things aren't real and they don't have that light behind the eyes type feel to it, it's all kind of a gut check thing. It's not going to work. There's a famous instance where it had incredible CGI, but it bombed at movie theaters. And that was that Tom Hanks CGI movie for the Polar Express.
Oh yeah.
Ultimately, the people didn't look right. There was something off about them. And I feel like we're still at that stage with AI, right? Like, you can kind of tell when it's a deep fake or there's AI. There's something just missing, that human element. So that's where I would say that's to draw the line, is don't use judgment. I would, talk to a bunch of people. If you're going to put out a picture of you using an AI, you better damn well be able to stand behind it if the press comes asking why you used it, right? You have to be able to defend it yourself.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, that's a topic that we could go off for several hours.
Glenn McGregor, we all know Glenn McGregor. Really,
yeah.
Photos and so.
Oh yes, we were a staffer in the same era. I remember you'd see Glenn go to Twitter and say, "This is a wheat field in whatever, Ohio." I don't it's like Idaho, and you're like, "What?"
Got him.
Okay.
Yeah, really. Yes. Important issues of the day.
Got you, Saskatchewan MP. All right, let's go to Wayne's question here. A few little typos here, but I think we got Wayne's question. It says basically, are most digital platforms, like sound bites, or like, basically, do you have to take an aggregate view? How do you look at what's going on and try to get a real read of what's happening, out there? Do you have to kind of take an aggregate view? I don't know. How do you try to get a real feel when you're looking at social media content of what the tone is?
Yeah, again, I think politics, again, it's a mixture of art and science, right? So it is a lot of data and analytics and seeing what works and what doesn't, but it also is a lot of gut. Like, how do I write to someone and know how to write to them? And I think a lot of that has to do with my own upbringing. My dad was a small businessman, and I grew up in Sarnia, Ontario, and I feel like I've never lost that. And I understand how normal people think. And I have this self-awareness to realize that we're all weird. Anyone watching this video is weird because like, most people don't, like, most people know so very little politics or care. That's increasingly less common now that they don't have the they can no longer, it's a luxury to be ignorant about politics. Now everyone has to care because of grocery prices and housing. But I think you have to have that self-awareness that we're weird, and how do you appeal to normal people, but ultimately also know how to use the tools available to win the day.
Okay. All right. Well, these are great questions. So keep them coming. If you want to drop them there in the chat, that would be great. And we really want these to be as helpful as we can for participants. So keep dropping them there in the chat. So Jeff, let's change gears just a little bit here. Not much, but just to get really practical for a moment. We've got staffers who will be watching this or are watching it now, and potential future staffers online tonight. So for someone who's just getting started in this line of work, like, what are some of the most simple and concrete steps that staffers can take to improve their online game, for lack of a better phrase, or if you'd like to frame it up differently, what are some of the most common mistakes that you see people make when they're trying to get things up and running?
I mean, social media isn't that hard. If you're just trying to get a good LinkedIn profile and get a good resume, and that should be fairly standard to do. I would work with a good designer if you need one, or use templates online. Like, don't feel afraid to, steal and copy what other people do or be inspired by it. But ultimately, I think it all comes down. Politics is ultimately people, and if you're not, keeping calls and emailing people and keeping connections warm and meeting new people and having coffees and doing grinding, you don't get anywhere. It's a lot of work, and you have to do the right things every day to make a difference. And and even then I'm like, how many years I've been involved in politics now, like professionally, 15, and it's still a grind every day.
Yeah, for sure. Now, but what about when they want to start, or they finally get the chance to manage someone else's, online profile, or their social media accounts? What are some of the things that just are must do's or don'ts?
Copy editing. It's amazing how, and I used to think, I still, obviously everyone makes mistakes.
Sure.
But you get better at it as you do it. You make fewer and fewer copy editing mistakes. I'm certainly better at it. If you have a team, make sure there's multiple eyes on a document before it gets published. Mistakes happen, but those little habits being, making sure that there's no typos, making sure that social media isn't overly scheduled, right? Because you never know when something bad is going to happen, and then you can be CTV tweeting out. I'm not sure if anyone saw that, but CTV tweeted out the SS officer being applauded in the House of Commons after it came out that he was an SS officer or SS veteran.
Oh.
So they had a huge runner, and so just make sure your scheduling is good. You're using the right photos. Just it's very visually stimulating and easy to read and very user friendly.
Yeah. Now, here's another kind of question I think is a lot of people's minds is, how many platforms is enough or too much? Do you need to be on all of them? Like, I know myself, I made the plunge and I jumped in. I am a Twitter/X user, I guess. Although every time I go on, I think, why do I do this to myself? And so I'm like, okay, I'll jump on Threads as well. And I probably posted about 3 times since I've been on there, because it's just like, I got to get into a new rhythm, a new routine, and I don't think about it as much. Like, what's your advice to people when they're getting ready, if they're working for a politician and they're just looking at the platforms? Like, how many are actually useful, and what would you recommend? How do they decide which ones are most important?
Sure. So I think ultimately know your audience. If you're trying to win a suburban seat in Brampton, it's very different than, if you're trying to win a seat in rural Alberta. You have to know where your audience is, what are their media consumption habits, what are they doing, what do they like, and build everything around that. So many people try to make politics, they build something and then try to customize it toward the audience, and you need to do it from the audience outwards. And realize that we need to be relevant to, as Canadians, on a very hyper local focus. Everyone's favorite word is their own name. So you have to understand that if we say, hey, Nanaimo, it's more pertinent to someone in Nanaimo than just saying, hey, Canadians, right? You could say, hey, Canada, people, it's not as relevant in Nanaimo as saying, hey, Nanaimo. So I think we need to be doing a better job of finding those niche audiences and speaking to them directly, whether it's like, hey, car dealers, or hey, hey, suburban, hey, Scarborough, and like name a street. And you find something that's local to that area, trying to just be hyper relevant. And then everything from there is, okay, well then what do people in Scarborough use? What are their social media platforms? And then you figure that out.
Yeah. And is there a way that you could find that out? Like, a simple thing, if you're, working for a new MP and just trying to see what are the most prominent things, like, in your riding, is there a way to research that?
Yeah, there's ways to research that. I mean, a lot of it's pretty standard, and that's why people hire us to figure that out for them. But I don't want to give all my secrets.
As we should. That's right. Yeah. Lay it all out.
Yeah. Do you want my bank code too? No.
We just need your pet name from when you were a child, and yeah.
Yeah, this is the Tinder swindler, but it's right. Okay, so no. Like, I mean, a lot of general from Twitter's for journalists and activists, and for the the popular rabble of political discourse in Canada. I think it's the town square. Normal people, like my mom isn't in that town square. She's not on Twitter, but she's certainly on Instagram and on Facebook. New Canadians certainly use WhatsApp a lot. whether it's a local Temple men's group, whether it's a cricket league, they're all, these are important things that you can't neglect, right? We got to figure out how do we get relevant to a cricket league in Brampton? Like we have to figure this stuff out. So that's platform. There's platforms. WeChat for Chinese speaking Canadians. There's all these sorts of different platforms. Everything's getting more fragmented, not less.
Wow. I mean, yeah, you think back to, I mean, certainly, boy, I can't help but feel old whenever I say when I was growing up or when I was in university, but I mean, very limited number of channels, people watched the news at night. I mean, you watched one of 3 different newscasts, but you watched that. And now where people get their news, and I was listening to an American podcast the other day, and they did a focus group. It was actually the Breaking Points podcast. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but and they were doing this with conservatives, and they're going to do them with Democrats coming up because it's primary season. And they were asking people where they got their news, and it was down to specific. Like no one was even saying like Fox News, or no one was saying like this individual show on a network. It was like this social media channel or this YouTube channel and this individual's Twitter account. It's so precise. The idea that you can put something out there, and I think for those of us who've run campaigns before, we've all have those very well-meaning people who come in and say, "You just need to get your message out there." And I'm like, thanks, tips. That's super.
Buy a newspaper ad. Yeah,
that's right. What have we thought?
Only get a $40,000 ad in the Globe and Mail. That'll change everything.
That'll get it. Everybody will be talking about that. So let's move into Dean's question then, because that kind of ties into that a little bit about the states. So he says. It says for both of us, some big campaigns in the US see half their budget go to digital. In Canada, it seems like most campaigns get nowhere close to that number. And he's asking me specifically, how did you invest in digital in a winning campaign in Alberta? And why are Canadian campaigns spending less? And how do we convince campaign managers to invest more? So maybe do you want to start with sort of what you've seen in terms of trends, and I can chime in a little bit.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing in the States is they've developed influencers outside the Republican Party, right? That can carry, and the Democrats have it too. They understand the power of surrogates and institutions. The Liberals do in Canada. This is kind of a tangent from what Dean asked, but I think it all harkens back to the same problem that we have, which is the Liberals have institutions and we don't. They give their institutions and their allies tax money. We basically make it difficult for people to get involved at any level. We make it very hard to be a conservative and join the team. So we need to figure out how to better reach out and get be more ambitious, I think. And so that would include in modernizing, and that includes spending more on digital and realizing the better way to spend it, and not trying to run campaigns from 1995.
I'll add to that just on a practical level. Like I would say spending limits is a big issue, because I mean, when you talk about an American campaign spending half their budget on digital, normally their budget is so much larger than what we have to spend in Canada. So if you're doing things legally and by the book, which of course I would always recommend that you do, for me as a campaign manager in Alberta, for example, so we had, and I'm going off the top of my head, so I probably don't have this exactly right, but we had about 1 million, a little bit, just slightly over 1 million of our total budget was for advertising, and our cap was just over 3 million. So basically a full third. Was it a little bit more? Anyway, I'm starting to get, it's a bit fuzzy because it's now in the rearview mirror, but out of that, like half of the ad spend was digital as well. But for me to staff up a full war room and have the premier on the road and have tour people supporting her, they've all got to get paid. And I can only go so low. I mean, people will take a leave of absence from their government job to, and they understand they're working for a month at less than what they would make. But, by the time you bring in, potentially whatever, 40, 50 people into a campaign apparatus and pay them, like you've already started to use up a good chunk of that. And then of course you've got voter ID and GOTV that's going there, and any sort of mail program you're doing. So like everyone knows who's managed a campaign, that starts to chew up big chunks of your budget. So all of a sudden it's not like we raised more than $3.2 million for sure, but I couldn't spend it because I had a cap, and because my cap was based, if you judge it according to the states, relatively small. Like I could have easily spent a lot more and had the money to do it, but it wouldn't have been legal to do so. So anyway, that's just another angle there.
Yeah, digital budgets are tough because they can be very, very efficient on a national level, but on a local level, they can be a lot less efficient. As a digital guy, I've never really had to worry about paying for other aspects of a campaign like field and telephones and all the other expenses, staffing. So I'm kind of biased. I always just want more, right? Whatever
you're that guy. You're the guy on my team who's like, I need more. If I could just get this, then we could do this. And I'm like, I know, but they need to
but
sleep
at the same time, you'd be surprised what you can do with 10 grand. Like if you do a 10 grand ad buy, you can be incredible numbers with 10 grand. I've had a lot of fun with 10 grand. And that's a fun number. You don't necessarily, obviously if there's campaigns, we've spent multitudes of that, but 10 grand, you can learn a lot with 10 grand.
Yeah, very cool. Let's go to Karen Woods. Karen, great to hear from you. So Karen says, today people get their information in fragmented lanes, which you referred to earlier, Jeff. How do you build a digital strategy that ensures your audience has all the facts with the proper context and not just partisan talking points? Or is that not in yours or my interest? And she adds an LOL, so we can laugh along. But I guess that's the thing is like, in terms of actually getting a message out there, and thanks, Karen, for that question. Great question. Like, how much context can you provide, or is it really truly a matter like we have to just make these messages so simple that when they're flipping by in your feed, you're just able to grab it?
You have to do both. Like you can't do one or the other. It's everything, right? You have to you're doing a quick meme that might get someone to make things, think of something differently, something really, really, really poignant. That makes some people laugh, can be very cutting. That can be a 30-second TV ad, but it also can be a long form, YouTube documentary. We've seen a lot of smart conservative MPs starting to do long form content. Like Andrew Scheer's done some stuff with my friend Jeff Pierce. We've, that sort of stuff is great. The leader certainly, Pierre has certainly done it. Explaining, the power, like this is why Pierre is so great at what he does, like the power of the penny and using pieces of wood and talking about his personal experiences. You have to be a good storyteller. And so part of that does involve quick bits where you're giving nothing but quick talking points to something that's funny, to something that's long form and providing that context. But at all stages, you have to be entertaining and engaging.
So what if you're someone who's just not entertaining and engaging? Like, do you use other people to speak on your behalf, or do you just embrace it?
You know what?
Boring, or
you have a brand that doesn't necessarily, like, say you have, you're Mr. Burns. Would I put Mr. Burns in front of the camera? No, but I would create content around him that's interesting and engaging. Right.
Right. Okay.
That tells the story.
So in other words, it's bringing on someone like yourself or a staffer who's going to find the way to make these things, interesting. Even if it's your lack of charisma becomes the interesting thing. You can almost, actually, let me ask you that too. What risks are there of trying to kind of be playful and fun with it? If you got someone that you just want to, like there was the ad. I mean, I think I don't know, maybe people have seen it or not, but the one where, the please reelect my husband ad, because like he's just sitting at home and and he's all talking about all the details about the whatever, the local programmer, this, that, and his wife keeps looking at the camera like, please reelect him, like get him out of the house, basically. He's made for this, and they're poking fun at him in a good way, and I felt it worked, that this guy is just born for this, and oh my gosh, he'd be horrible to live with. But that's comedy or humor, and that's humor can be a double-edged sword, can it, in politics?
Yeah, but you also, conversely, you don't want to be the drunk uncle at the dinner table, right? You can't be angry all the time, right? Or people will tune you out. You can't be depressed all the time and sad and disappointed all the time because you're, a hurt bag and not very fun to be. So you have to be able to show multiple.
Pro tip for your Thanksgiving, everyone. Just mark that down. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't be Debbie Downer. And so, I think you just need to be human, experiment, see what works. And also don't listen to your critics. No matter what you say or do, someone's going to hate on it. It's a cost of admission. So, and sometimes you win, sometimes you win a campaign and sometimes you get 1%, like I did with the Bradford campaign. And that was humbling, but there's politics is politics, and there's a million ways that things end up. And you just need to be, just be you. Don't just be a human being.
like to come back about the critics and the 1%, but I want to get to Wayne's question here. And he brings up the podcast topic, which is something that we haven't raised yet in terms of the digital space. Would it be a good idea to have a regular podcast? What do you say to people who are looking at maybe entering that space?
I mean, sure, good luck to you. I think it's a really crowded space. I think a lot of Canadian politicians have tried it. But I mean, if you can build a better mousetrap, then all the power to you. If you think you've got something special and you bring something to the table, sure, go nuts. Fill your booth. I think we need more conservative media in this country, small C conservative media and big C conservative media. And I think it's you never know what'll catch fire and you might be able to speak to your audience better than anyone else can. So develop that niche for you, develop a community around yourself. I think everyone needs to understand the power of an online community.
Excellent. Thanks for that. And just to say here, Rob in the comments as well talks about he confirmed that $10,000 is a great number, built a lot off a great $10,000 campaign. So thanks, Rob, for that. Good to hear from you. I want to pick up on something you said there about the 1% campaign. Because I think this is something that we all need to recognize, anyone, especially who's interested in campaigning. Like you said, like I personally have helped some people exceed expectations in their elections, and I've had some that have gone very, very poorly. I tend to learn a lot from the ones where we don't win. What's your process when you're done a campaign, win or lose? Do you debrief? Do you sit down? Do you analyze? Or if you win, do you just sort of hoist the cup and move on to the next thing, or do you still pause and reflect? Like, what do you do after a campaign?
Man that's never satisfied, and I will always be critical of what I could have done better and what could have done, what could have been. But I don't do the revisionist history stuff. So I mean, with the Bradford campaign, I think my team did a good job. I wish there's more we could have done, but we were also victims of circumstance. When when Bradford decided to run, we weren't sure if Olivia Chow was going to run. We weren't sure if Mark Saunders was going to run. We weren't sure if Anthony Furey was going to run. And, we were told by Tory's team that, Tory was never going to endorse Bailao. And obviously that changed things. So it is what it is. There's things that I think Brad would have been a great mayor. I think there's a million of great ideas. I'm proud of, I love the team that I worked with. So, but it is what it is. We got our asses kicked, and, we live to fight another day. But I got to experiment with some really cool ideas. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. There's stuff that a lot of lessons learned, and my team got better at doing it too. It's all part of I've got a team behind me now, and just the practice. It was like a game that we played, and we're getting better for it. Even if we lost.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. You raised critics. Now, obviously, you can't be in digital public affairs without thinking about critics, and I know that. I never cease to be amazed, honestly, at how low it can get online. And I think people attack us as conservatives, and from what I can see, it happens to people on the left as well. What's your advice on how to handle that? I mean, if you're going to be going out and trying to have an active politician that you're working for, or if someone here has an active profile, how do you handle the haters? Like, what do you got to do with that?
I think you have to have I think there's a bit of. I mean, everyone's tripped up and gotten. I think a lot of people, like in my profession, have tripped up and gotten an online fight or spat. It doesn't. It's not good juju. Like, it's not good for you. I don't think it's good for your soul. I think there's times when you want to punch back and fight back and use a nice quip, but to get lost in the comments and become a Rachel Gilmore, I mean, that's not a good look for anyone. And I think it's just, it's toxic to you, and I think it hurts. It warps your mentality, and I think it's not, as I said, not good for your soul.
Yeah. No, I think that's it's sometimes easier said than done when you see these things and you go, oh, that's so stupid. And of course, my temptation is always to fight or should I send back this little witty, sarcastic barb? And then I've at least started to kind of implement my own, I will run it by one other person, maybe two other people. And I find that most of the time they're just like, why are you doing that? Like, yeah, I know. But, I want them to tell me it's funny, and at least, but
My friends and I are also really dark and hard on each other. And all of them work in, this group of friends, at least this group chat, they all work in the industry, and we find each other the most mean things that people say about us online and share it with each other.
Nice. Oh boy.
And they develop nicknames around it. So I don't know. My one buddy calls me Rich Daddy's Boy because one Twitter commenter said it about me once. Anyways, yeah, okay. Rich Daddy's Boy Jeff had to say this, and you have to laugh. But I mean, these guys, if you spend all day, you have to laugh at these people. So a lot of people are just miserable, and let them be miserable. And if you believe in what you're doing, it is what it is.
Oh man. Okay, that's I'm glad. Good for you. It's good to have good friends. Um, what are some things you see going well on the left in the digital space? Like, are there things that they're doing that you just think we don't do as well?
The Canadian left has really fallen off. Like, I
Okay.
cannot believe how far they've gone. Like, they used to be so good, but Trudeau Liberals, their digital's gone to crap. So, but the States is still amazing. Like, to see what, like I went to a Bernie Sanders rally just to soak it in and be there, right? I wanted to see what they do, and Bernie Sanders has had such great digital throughout the years, and seeing what Biden is even doing right now. The Democrats are just so advanced. They have the money, they have they understand, as I was saying, the entertainment aspect, right?
Right.
They certainly have Hollywood behind them, and now those that are winning in the States, guys like Ben Shapiro. He gets the power of media, and he's creating entertainment divisions, kids divisions. He's selling products. It's stuff that there's going to be Canadian conservatives going to learn a lot from, because I think there's a massive market for an alternative to the Canadian status quo.
Mhm. Can you just elaborate what you mean about the entertainment side there in the States? Like, what do they do? Is it like you're talking celebrity, or is it
A bit of both. Like, I mean, Shapiro's showing that there's a market for, like, he's starting to make movies and kids programming, as I said, but he's funny, he's interesting. We're seeing a lot more American stand-up comedians that are not, typical laugh track, they're way more, whether it's, guys like, Joe Rogan, I mean, love him or hate him, he's developed a massive market for a reason. Comedians that I adore, like Andrew Schultz or Shane Gillis, they're showcasing there's something different, or there's, Ryan Long. All these guys are showing that being a little bit different, not being, boring, and the Jimmy Kimmels of, laugh tracks and canned jokes is there's a market for it, and I think it extends to entertainment and politics.
Yeah. Just a couple fun ones here to just toss in. Sorry, am I getting an echo, or is that just me? No, okay, we're fine. The what was the first kind of meme that you did that blew up? Do you remember that?
We've had a lot. I don't know, but this is one of my friends still know, like Share If You Love Ontario Blueberries. These were ones that I used. I realized the power of them, because Facebook back then was like, share if you love your daughter. And I would see my then mother-in-law sharing about it. And I would, it would be funny. Like, so it was so quaint and such a mother-in-law or mother thing to do.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh, I have something here, and I can do this with Ontario Nostalgia. And then I was able to, get 78,000 people to share something about Weber's Burgers, and then develop a massive audience, and then slowly start inserting politics through the lens of hydro bills and people's beefs with that, and to start changing the conversation there. But I was able to amass a massive audience doing that, and at the time it was so fun, and I wish that tactic still worked, but it was it was lightning in a bottle at the time, and it was fun to master.
Yeah, and I guess that gets to the point, or the idea that this is evolving so much. Like, I remember when when the light went on, of course, like when you see something for the first time on social media, like you said, share this if you love your daughter or whatever. Like I would like these things or whatever, or I think I even did some of the quizzes, early on in Facebook, before you start to realize, like, wait a minute, this is someone's using this, and now all of a sudden I'm in a group that I'm not aware of, and but now that's different. So how do you stay on top of these trends and algorithms and things? Because, like, honest to goodness, like, I'm not wired this way, and so when I'm running a campaign, like, someone will tell me this is the way it works, and I go, okay, that's great, and then a year later, I'm running a different campaign, and I say, so this is the way it works. And then the digital person's like, no, that hasn't been that way for 14 months now. And they make it sound like I'm talking about, like, the pioneers coming, like, so how do you stay on top of it?
I hire really good young people. I think that's part of it. I love my team. They're really smart. I'm sure they annoy the hell out of me, and I annoy the hell out of them sometimes, but they bring me stuff, and we really have a very, level, chain of command in terms of ideas. Like, if you have a good idea, if you can, out argue me in terms of what a way to do things, and I'm all for it. And that's kind of the attitude I have. But it's also, I'm just a consumer of media, and I love politics. I love this space. This is my world. I've been a political junkie since I've been 13, and political marketing junkie since I was 13 too. Like, I had Mike Harris posters up, and I've always loved TV ads. And my buddy Ryan and I, to this day, will drink wine and watch random Ontario political ads all night, and nerd out. But you just have to have a passion for it. And so I think I'm good at identifying, especially and my team are good at identifying emerging trends and take things from weird spaces, whether it's consumer marketing or entertainment, and figuring out how to do cool things in politics with it.
Mm-hmm. Now, but part of that is like, it sounds like part of it's art and part of it's science. So I mean, one is having these cool young people who are staying on top of the latest trend, and we got to get our politician on this hashtag or to this music on TikTok or whatever. That's how hip I am. I reference TikTok in a conversation, but the part of it is like learning what the algorithm likes and doesn't like and things like. Is that truly just watching and seeing what works and what doesn't, or do these kind of social media platforms, do they give any type of insight to you as experts as to here's what we're looking for now, or here's what we're not looking for?
The only piece of advice that actually works is understanding. If you understand how a casino works, you understand how social media works. And that is, you enter a casino, they make it really stimulating for your eyes and your senses. You're awake. They pump oxygen in, like you're instantly awake. They make it hard to look at the floor with a really bad carpet, so you're looking at the games. There's no windows. You don't know what time of day it is. There's no clocks. They don't show what time of day. They don't show what the time of day, and they make the exits really hard. And so Canadian media is really upset right now because they wanted Facebook to pay for links, to outside of the website, which is crazy because why would Facebook want people leaving their website to begin with?
Yeah.
The casino doesn't have multiple doors, they have one. And so you have to create your content understanding that what Facebook wants, or what Instagram wants, or what TikTok wants, or what Twitter wants is people staying on site. So how do you get people to stay on site? You get them to watch that full 3-minute video. You get them to comment. You get them to come back to comment. You get them involved in comment wars. You get them getting them liking and sharing and that sort of stuff, right? You get them angry. You get them happy. You get them nostalgic. You have to understand the power of what moves audiences and keeps them on site. And if you do that, Facebook will reward you.
You mentioned about the developments with Facebook and so on. How has that changed things with activism and so on, where it's not as easy? I see some workarounds and things happening, but what sort of change is that happening in terms of how people are able to share information and do you think this
it's ultimately going to change. Advocacy media is doing really well. Like Canada Proud has had its best month in a long time. Best month ever on Instagram. Crazy on Twitter. Our numbers are staggering in the last 28 days, and that also has to do with the political cycle. But advocacy media is going to win out the day because the Canadian media have really shot themselves in the foot with C18. I think it's going to, as Google delists them, like Facebook's not bringing back links on their site. I don't see that happening. We'll see how much longer these old guys have. But you just watch, they don't seem like they're trying very hard. Certainly if you watch CTV News or others, they don't seem like they care.
Yeah. Well, Jesse there had a question, but I think we kind of addressed that one there, way around the Facebook news rules.
It's videos, it's videos and it's graphics.
Yeah.
You just can't do links.
Yeah, so you make your own videos and you make your own sort of takes on things.
Yeah,
so.
Like everyone has to be their own content producer now. Like you can't rely on, on a news outlet to get your message out.
Yeah,
it's really going to kill traditional media relations.
Yeah, boy, that's a whole other topic. But boy, yeah, that is, I mean, so different. Like when I started I first of all started as a nonpartisan public servant, and media relations was where I was working, and just the whole thing was, you're on the phone and relationship building and this and that, and now it's just like you got one reporter covering 6 or 7 beats, and they may anyway. It's crazy.
Yeah, you have to make their life, and those that are covering it, you find the good ones that are professionals, and you work with them, and you help them do their jobs.
Yeah, I'm going to go one more question here in the chat from Bobby. He says, "What is the value of moving audience to email lists for long-term nurturing? Or are you just spending extra resources on voters you already win?" What's your thoughts on email lists?
They're incredibly important. The problem with social media is that you're building property on someone else's land. Someone can always take your, like Facebook. Our Facebook page used to be a juggernaut. That used to be our main thing. Facebook's like one of our least important platforms now, even though we have a massive audience there. It still does well when we're using paid behind. If we put dollars behind Facebook, it's incredible, but organically, it's not what it once was. So email is incredibly important. I've worked with clients and amassed thousands and hundreds of thousands of email lists for people. And once you have their email, you can get more things from them, like surveys, get their phone number, learn more about what they like, what they don't like. And the more data you have, the more power you have, the more value you have. So no, email is incredibly important because it's your email list. It's no one else's.
All right, Jeff, this has been great. Last question I just want to toss to you before to wrap us up. What's your overall take? Are you optimistic with the direction of the conservative movement and its digital engagement? I mean, whether it's more people approaching you or other great firms popping up, or you feel like we're sort of stagnant right now? Where are we at?
I think we got a lot of smart conservatives from across the country doing a lot of cool digital stuff, like Paul and his team working directly with the leader, and they're putting out great stuff. And Pierre certainly gets digital better than any other conservative leader ever has. He understands the necessity to get around the media lens and speak to voters directly using the multitude of different mediums and styles and lengths and all that stuff. So he's a real leader in that. But the rest of us need to realize, fill in the gaps and help augment what Pierre's doing to move and persuade minds, and ultimately fight back against narratives that are bad and are harmful to the country. But so I think the conservative movement's doing well. Always room for improvement. The country's just gone to the toilet.
Well, Jeff, I want to thank you for the work that you do with the Mobilize Media team and just your greater commitment to the conservative movement. And Jeff was one of the first people who reached out to me when we launched Right Recruiter. Very encouraging. I think we're going to be looking for ways that we'll be working together with Jeff, in the future, and just has a real desire to see, strong staffers, kind of all levels of government, all levels of campaigning. And so, Jeff, I applaud you for the work you've been doing. You've done. You are a groundbreaker, and thanks for spending time with us here tonight. We really appreciate it. I think the engagement in the chat just shows, just how much interest there is in this topic. We are going to send an email out with some links and things, but I just want to say to folks, where can they follow you, or where can they learn more about your services?
Sure. So I guess the easiest one is probably my Twitter, Jeff Ballingall on Twitter, or mobilize.media to find me on the internet. Feel free to contact me. I'm happy to chat with anyone. Good advice, figure out ways to work together, all that sort of jazz. So yeah, thanks, Steve, for all you do. You're a visionary for finally doing Right Recruiter. I've wanted to do something like this forever. It's a huge asset, and will be as we get ready to form government. God willing. So yes,
that's where we all want to be. So, all right. Well, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate your time here. Appreciate all of you for tuning in now, or for those who are watching it, kind of on demand later on. We've got, as always, we'll be getting our next webinar out there soon. If anyone's in Red Deer for November 16th and 17th, a Friday and Saturday, or that might be the 17th and the 18th. My apologies. I'm going to be a part of the Canada Strong and Free Network training day that's going on out there. Right Recruiter has been engaged to help kind of get that training going. So love to see you be a part of that as well. If you're out in Red Deer or around, love to have you there. So thanks again. Thanks, Jeff. Have a great night, everyone. And we look forward to our next webinar. Take care.